1.2.
Mr. Grandison, in conjunction with our road inspection that we did in the fall, in the course of that driving tour, it was, we made note of certain properties that are of need of some attention, and I'm going to say probably mostly from the accumulation of debris. You can say other things about it. But we did not want to specifically identify those properties while we're trying to resolve or bring the property into compliance. At a minimum, we listed 5 properties in that particular day. I've listed them here for you this evening, and they're generally described as a location. I think it's adequate enough that the building code official would understand where they're at, and I can certainly tell them specifically.
Okay.
But it's been a policy in Marlborough Township to seek compliance first, and therefore I'm going to call it a friendly letter is mailed to these property owners. It's informational, making them aware of what their problem is, and we're looking for them, we're looking for their cooperation and bringing into compliance and make a contact with the township office. The next letter would be a more sternly written letter. It might also say, unless you comply, you can expect enforcement action. And then the third letter is enforcement action. That's the practice that we followed in my 6 years here, and Iron has had pretty good success with that. Not 100%, so that's not 100% compliance, but
breaking it down to a 3-step process.
Yes.
So I guess the question before the board tonight is, are we ready for step 1 on the properties that have been identified?
Mr. Ascoli had a question earlier of that.
I thought we also agreed that the file that we would build would include photographs, so that we would have a visual record of the property both before and after remediation. And I don't know if the photos exist. Have they been taken yet?
We have some photographs of this property. So we have a baseline, so-called baseline. I started
A baseline in photos.
Yes. We need to have that. I think if you don't have that, it's tough to
I would agree with that.
I thought we agreed to have that done when we did this.
Yes.
I don't understand.
I also thought we had already agreed to send out the informal letter because the time frame would have been such that by the time we got to any letter that was more terse in what it said, there would be perhaps a revision of the ordinance that would enable what we were trying to do.
Right.
So your statement, Paul, was that some photos have been made, and anyone that wasn't,
I'll make sure that
can.
Yes.
Okay. There are a couple questions. First, Claire.
When this came up before, I asked you, did you drive over all roads in the township? And I think the answer at that point was you drove over township roads, not the state and county roads in the township.
Well, we also didn't drive over all township roads.
Okay, but you didn't, when you drive down Hopkinville Road, for instance, you close your eyes because you don't want to see all those violations there, and that's a state road. So I think you are selectively, if you said you picked up these on a road inspection, then I think you better drive all the roads. Otherwise, you're just picking on people who happen to live on a township maintained road. I'm not opposed to what you're doing, but I think that before you get involved in too much, a letter might be nice, maybe people clean it up. But there are properties on county roads and on state roads that are probably just as messy. I haven't been privileged to see your list, but just as messy or more messy
I think, Claire, I think we can all agree with that this does not address all of them. This is just a starting point. We've got to start somewhere. And they're not all on township roads on this list.
And the mechanism that the township has to address these cannot handle all of them at one time. It can only take them in doses because it occupies the resources at a variety of levels that the township has. And while this came about from the October inspection, there will be others that come about from the April inspection, assuming that you continue to do the road inspections. And there may be others that are added to the list in between the October and April sessions. In fact, didn't I also send either Paul or you another one that was on Jericho Pike, an abandoned house that's boarded up?
I don't recall getting it, but there may be another one. We were holding the list to 5, so we will continue to comply with that list. Absolutely.
I was going to ask if there was a list of these properties because there's a lot of places around that have junk cars and so on. And they're pretty dangerous for kids playing on them, crawling in them. And the older cars don't have something you can get out of the trunk. If you're in there, you're in there forever. A fence around them?
We were also making a concerted effort not to specifically identify the property by the person's name.
That's fine, yeah.
Or the house number, so as not to cause anyone embarrassment. The list that we have put together here makes vague reference to the nearest roads, the main road and the nearest intersection.
That's fine.
We know what we're talking about, but
I guess what I'm asking, do they include any with junk cars, that type of stuff? Because that's pretty dangerous stuff just sitting there.
I think absolutely some of these.
I think companies do
Okay.
others.
And there's also properties that have gone through this process previously in the township that have come to the end of the process that the township can enact, and that is there is a lien against the property. And there's only so much you can do until you lien the property, and after you lien the property, there's no power that the township has to do anything beyond that. We don't have the authority to go in with a police force and pull people out of the house, for instance.
I was just thinking of putting fences around them so kids can't get near them or whatever. There is several around with junk cars, it's pretty dangerous.
Well, if a car has a license plate on it, then it becomes a motor vehicle issue.
Right.
If it doesn't have a license plate on it, then it becomes an abandonment issue and a property maintenance code issue.
Yeah, that's all being explored by the planning commission and subcommittee.
And how many cars with licenses can be on a residential lot?
I can't provide that information.
Have to refer to
With 15 too many?
with a license.
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is.
15 licensed vehicles?
15 vehicles, probably licensed inspection, you know. I'm not sure, I drive by this place every other day.
And if they're licensed and inspected,
So I can park as many cars as I want on my lot. Anywhere on the lot.
I can't see why not.
No, I think the zoning addresses that.
There is a business on the road that Mr. Ryan lives in.
Okay, so you're referencing business here.
It's not talking about
I don't
residential.
know if it is that property, but we have to be cautious as to what specific property we're addressing, because it might be other rights, property rights.
Do you want any action on this, Brian?
Yeah, I guess I'm ready to start with the informal letter. Step 1.
Where do the pictures come in? Who's getting pictures?
That's our law.
Yeah, our law. Our code enforcement officer would be doing that.
You're sure?
That's who's taking photos, unless you're going to volunteer to take the photos.
I don't even know the camera.
Okay.
I thought we had directed that after this,
We didn't take formal, so I think that's what we're doing tonight. Some of the photos have been taken, the photos are ready, those properties can start the process. The others can be taken first and then start.
Are you going to start sending out letters before you have a complete list? In other words, you might be picking on somebody for 2 years. Another guy's sitting down here violating the same thing. Wouldn't it be proper to have a list, total
I
list?
think we've already defined that tonight, that we can't do them all at once. So we've got to start somewhere. So this is a start. If we don't start, none of this is ever going to get resolved. So I'm ready to start. This is a sampling. We know it's not all of them, but I think a few of these, maybe some of the worst.
Right, or some of the more egregious offenses.
When do you end up, somebody says, you send me a letter, and I say, John over there doing the same thing, what's up with him? He's not getting a letter? I don't know if it seems right.
We have to deal with that situation equally.
Absolutely. Okay.
Brian, I saw the letter, for the right to know, I saw a letter for these violation letters. Are you going to change the format at all on that? Because a lot of it referred to a property maintenance code and a bunch of code numbers, which to most people means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think we are, because we're looking at a different approach to
You
this.
just kind of put it in black and white form and maybe code, you know, and the number of it, you know, vehicles.
That would probably be the step 2 letter. Okay, I guess I'll make the motion that we start with these 5 properties on the step 1 approach with an informal letter.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We shall get started.